Hello, I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm the host for the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times, Season 6, Episode 24. So, this podcast is about small-minded thinking and as it applies to religion and to politics and to everyday events. And my guests include people who've had near-death experiences or shared death experiences because, as I've shared, I've had a near-death experience, and there were two people at the end of my bed when it happened, and they were there when I got back. So today's podcast, though, is about small-minded thinking in society and how it's being modeled by our leaders and famous people and commentators, and it's really sad. And I'm an independent, so I don't want you to think this is partisan. It's not Democrat or Republican because it's evidenced on both sides. And then especially yesterday with the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was a person that certainly had different ideas. And you can see the many instances where he debated people in a very healthy way. It didn't mean you were going to change his mind, but what I've been talking about on this podcast for 6 seasons is we've lost the ability to have a dialogue and learn to compromise. And they were called centrists when I was growing up. I voted for Bill Clinton, and I've voted for Republicans as well. And experiencing both sides, especially the last 10, 12 years, I'm an independent today because neither side is right. And small-minded thinking. So I have the acorn brain, right? This is what I've been talking about for 6 seasons, small-minded thinking. And small-minded thinking is evidenced by one side believing they're right and the other wrong, and both parties do it. And now I believe it's led to violence in many instances. In Minnesota, where the guy killed Democrats that were in his leadership of his party, and he was even a member of some of the commissions. He had been assigned to a commission by the governor of Minnesota. And then you have people shouting. I think of the Texas Rep Crockett. I think of Maxine Waters telling people after the first Trump election to get in their face when they're having dinner. And then you have Crockett making some very crazy statements about people that are MAGA supporters. You have Chuck Schumer talking about violence against, even suggesting about violence against Supreme Court justices and what we'll do now that we're in charge. It's very fascinating that one side thinks that they know better than the other. Now, Republicans are no better. They've all done the same thing, which is why I say that the two-party system has failed us. And the person who committed the assassination of Charlie Kirk, very small-minded thinker. When you get so irritated that someone doesn't agree with you, that A, you want to move out of the country. I'm not saying that was what the assassin wanted to do, but B, then you want to kill people that disagree with you. We have to learn to overcome this small-minded thought, this reactive thought in our mind, and we can run our mind. We can learn to run it. I've written about it in many books. In Wake Up, Jump Into Your Life, in No BS Coaching, in Sage Advice, in How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon, in Your Brain is Brilliant, but It's Not Always Your Friend, In Plain Sight. And then I even wrote about it in the new book about breaking the upset cycle. In particular, how to break the annual family upset cycle during holidays. Excuse me. Because so many people gather for the holidays and they can't get along with their relatives. And they are descending into angry quarrels and upsetting complete family events because people disagree. It is very small-minded. It's very much like making others wrong because they don't believe the same religion as you. It's not why we're here. This human existence, we're here to learn acceptance and find the gift in so many different species, opinions, colors, types of people, where they live. It's cultures. And if we continue to make each other wrong, it will continue to deteriorate our conditions here. I mean, people think we couldn't have a war here. That's not true. And then you have people like Putin who wants to take, even my Reese agrees, they want to take land from another country and sacrifice millions of people. This is where the populace is wrong, right? We should make our leaders fight it out. And what if we decided that we didn't want to go to war? And humans can do that by just refusing to take up arms for an army. And humans can do that by refusing to purchase arms. No amount of gun control, I hear that now, will stop violent people, because what will happen is gun control will mean that innocent people, regular law-abiding citizens, won't have guns because they'll abide by the law. And then what will happen. The black market will develop, and there will be no fewer arms in the hands of evil people. It's very much like prohibition. We know that didn't work. And all the laws, the war against drugs, that didn't work. We've got to have a dialogue to think of different ways. We can't call the other party fascist because we disagree with them. If anything, Democrat, the definition of fascist is wanting everybody to agree and to educate people about that, and to what would the word be? Brainwash, I guess, everyone and to control things. And that sounds like Democrats, because they were very disappointed they didn't retain control of the government. And I understand why, right? No one wants to give up power. But I think in particular, this country, there's many millions of people who would prefer to see one party forever, the Democrat Party. And they became, in the last 10 years, very elitist, making sure to tell everyone how to live. And then you had Hollywood stars doing the same thing. You have commentators, whole news channels are failing because they decided to take one side, and in many cases, not telling the truth. We had senators lying just to support a narrative. And we have people in Congress lying to support a narrative and calling people Nazis and fascists and cruel people. A cruel person is someone who lies, number one, and number two, will say anything to remain in power, including lies, and to call people names. Now, even our president resorts to calling people names, which I disagree with. It's not healthy. All of our leaders are modeling poor behavior, pointing the finger at each other. And what happens is the general population, A, doesn't know where the truth is. B, what happens is they're modeling this behavior of making everyone wrong and calling for violent disagreements, calling the others who support people that disagree with them fascists and Nazis. And what happens is those leaders expect the general population to behave differently. They think they're in public office, so that they're not really saying anything bad. They're just saying what is. In their mind, that's the truth. But it's the acorn brain. It's this little small-minded thinker that always defaults to the lower energy in humans. We all know what the higher power is, that we can choose the higher power. The higher power is forgiveness and dialogue and allowing people to who believe differently than you to express their opinion, which might even lead to a compromise. You can't have a compromise when you draw hard lines and say, this is it. These people are all wrong because I disagree with them. And it's very small-minded thinking. And so the kind of guests that I want on my podcast are politicians. Come and debate me about some of their past statements, and I'll have them all. If one decides to be a guest, I'll research it all and challenge them about some of their statements and ask them, does it sound like small-minded thinking? Especially where we have facts that the truth came out later. And there's so many instances of that. I mean, it's like fear-mongering. Both sides do that kind of fear-mongering. And even Albie is agreeing. You can hear him in the background. He's willing to compromise. I just want you to think about limitless thinking. Like we live in something limitless, modeling this miracle we live in. I mean, we're floating around the universe in a ball. Here's the Earth painted on a marble. And physicists say we're actually probably smaller than that in relation to the size of the universe. More like a grain of sand. We're living in a miracle, and yet we are so small-minded. Very small-minded. And small-minded thinking does not model what created a universe. When I had my near-death experience, 1 second I was in my body in intensive care. The next second I was one with everything and nothing. Immense light, mercy, grace. One with the infinite, one with God, one with the Creator. And there was no small-minded thinking. Do you think a small-minded, vengeful person, human-like, could, or infinite being could create a universe? And then created a universe that would only have one religion, one preferable one, yours, and then to have us understand the purpose of life is to have chaos and conflict so we could learn to overcome our small-minded thinking. That's increasing our self-awareness, our emotional quotient. And what we've seen is our leaders have very low emotional quotients, very low self-awareness. And the voters, by the way, we haven't learned anything either because we're still re-electing people who lie and call for others very angry things and call for violence. Now they say, well, I didn't call for anyone to kill anyone. What you're calling for is people to get in the faces of others instead of saying this, hey, let's have a dialogue, everyone. Let's learn to compromise. In fact, do you see that much in Congress today? If a Republican or a Democrat call for compromise and start negotiating for the benefit of the people, often their party makes them wrong. They isolate them. Democrats often have one ad with a song, and all of a sudden you see the same message spewed by everyone in the Democratic Party. It's like they either toe the line, like the Communist Party line, or they're called out by their leaders. And they're threatened with, like, we'll primary someone against you. It's very bizarre. Now, I'm not saying Republicans don't do the same thing. I'm sure they do. I am an independent because of that. And I believe we need more parties than two so that it would force a negotiation for whatever number of parties, let's say 5, that no party would have a majority and they'd have to have a dialogue. We need to change our system if we cannot change our thinking. Just think about it. Think about it. I didn't agree with everything Charlie Kirk said, and what I respected was his willingness to have reasonable dialogue with people. And there's many, many videos that are evidence of his respectful way to dialogue with people. We've lost that art, but he had it. And some people still do. And I hope if you're listening to this, that is something you'll take on, or maybe you do it now. If you're doing it now, wonderful. We need more people to do it. And we need to start electing leaders who are talking about compromise and negotiation and learning to compromise, learning to have an adult conversation, expanding their awareness and their emotional quotient. I don't see much of it, especially in the ones that are spewing labels and names and making everyone wrong, and in such a coarse and crass way. And as I said, both sides do it. There's plenty of Republicans that get up and say nasty things about the Democrats. I've heard Ted Cruz, I've heard Lindsey Graham, I've heard people in different members of the Republican Party making others wrong and making statements that would only serve to infuriate others. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. Now, a Democrat I really appreciate is Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania. He's calling out crazy thoughts and asking for dialogue. And when he believes one side is wrong, he says, even if it's own party, here's what I think. If he says he finds another party correct in his view, even if it's not the Democratic Party, he says it. We need more people like Senator Fetterman. We need to think about this. Who are we electing? Are we electing demagogues and partisans who only spew nasty things about the rest of the electorate? How did that work out for the Democrats in the last election? And if the Republicans resort to making people wrong because, after all, you don't agree with us, that's not going to work out for them. Compromise and limitless thinking, moving beyond small-minded thinking that makes everyone around you wrong because you want to be right. That's the acorn brain. That's that little voice, that insidious little voice. We don't have to listen to it. Now, if you want to be a guest, reach out to me, steve@stevelentini.com, steve@stevelentini.com. If you've had a near-death experience or a shared death experience, or you're a currently elected politician, or maybe you were in the past, or maybe it's about religion. Those are the topics that I want to discuss. So feel free to reach out to me, steve@stevelentini.com. Here, I'll show you how I spell my name. Here's one of my books, but steve@stevelentini.com. And I'll be glad to have you as a guest. And just remember, I might ask you, does that sound like small-minded thinking? Think about it. Thank you.